Britain is no longer merely divided, it is under siege, a crisis erupting from within. In a shocking escalation that shook Westminster and Buckingham Palace, Prime Minister Starmer has reportedly triggered a wave of arrests targeting farmers and citizens who dared challenge his government's harsh policies. Behind closed doors, King Charles is said to have erupted in fury, denouncing what he calls a betrayal of the British people. Peaceful protesters are being handcuffed, ordinary citizens detained for questioning authority. This is no longer routine politics, it marks the start of something far darker, and the king is fully aware. The unrest began quietly with murmurs in rural communities over Labour's new inheritance tax targeting agricultural land, but outrage quickly spread. Generations-old family farms were suddenly overvalued, forcing grieving families to sell just to meet exorbitant tax bills. Already battered by energy hikes and market instability, rural Britain erupted. Tractors blocked motorways in Kent, Norfolk, and Yorkshire, bonfires flared along field edges, and entire communities staged peaceful camps in defiance of what they saw as attacks on survival. Rather than address the anger, Starmer's government responded with police, but not ordinary patrols. Riot squads equipped with shields, tear gas, and strict arrest quotas swept through peaceful protest camps and community halls. Farmers holding signs were handcuffed in front of their children, elders resisting the loss of ancestral land were forcibly removed, and social media erupted with footage capturing families, teenage volunteers, and pensioners, not criminals, being shoved into police vans. The crackdown soon extended beyond farmland. Town hall meetings across the country grew tense as constituents questioned Labour MPs on taxes, energy crises, and failing public services, only to face force instead of answers. Security officers dragged citizens from rooms mid-question, arresting some for alleged public order violations, non-compliance with what? Simply daring to speak out. The chilling message was unmistakable: dissent will not be tolerated. At that point, Buckingham Palace was drawn into the turmoil. Sources report that King Charles was briefed on the escalating unrest behind closed doors, reviewing footage from Kent and Yorkshire that left him visibly stunned. One video, showing police removing a disabled veteran from a protest, reportedly triggered an extraordinary outburst. Slamming his fist on the table, Charles declared, "This is not democracy. This is tyranny in plain sight." Multiple insiders report that the king made an urgent private call to the prime minister later that evening, and it was far from routine. One royal aide reportedly overheard Charles warn, "You are testing the foundations of this nation, and once the people lose trust, it cannot be rebuilt." This was not mere posturing. It was the King of England sounding the alarm that Britain was becoming unrecognizable, even dangerous. Yet Labour officials attempted to downplay the unrest, calling the arrests lawful enforcement of public order and labeling protesters agitators threatening national unity, but public faith was evaporating. Reform UK leaders denounced the government's response as undemocratic and brutal, and Starmer's support began collapsing in real time. Meanwhile, fresh reports poured in. In Lincolnshire, a mother of 3 was arrested at a community meeting for obstructing a government representative after asking how she could afford heating. In Essex, a farmer's entire livestock was seized for refusing to pay a disputed tax bill. In Cornwall, police were filmed telling young protesters, "You're not allowed to question government policy here." This isn't a debate. These are not isolated incidents, they are the new face of Labour's Britain, and public outrage is swelling. What is unfolding is far more than political turbulence, it is a crisis of democracy, national identity, and leadership. As Starmer tightens his grip and doubles down on authoritarian tactics, the cracks within the establishment are no longer subtle, they are fully exposed, the cracks have widened into chasms. Protests are no longer confined to farmland or quiet town halls, they've erupted across city centres in London, Birmingham, Manchester, and beyond. What began as resistance to unfair taxes and oppressive laws has transformed into a nationwide demand for freedom and accountability. Citizens are no longer merely opposing policies, they are rejecting a system that equates dissent with disloyalty and frames opposition as criminal. Reports confirm that over 700 people have been detained in the past 3 weeks under Starmer's so-called emergency stability measures, broad, vaguely defined rules that let police arrest anyone suspected of organizing unrest or spreading anti-government material. In practice, this is chilling: posting a critical video online, sharing a meme, attending a council meeting, or simply showing up at a protest can lead to immediate detention, with no trial in sight. Detainees are being held in makeshift facilities, converted warehouses, and in used military barracks, far from media oversight or legal aid, leaving families desperate for answers while legal experts warn that habeas corpus is effectively eroded. Meanwhile, pressure on King Charles is mounting. Constitutionally constrained yet symbolically charged as the guardian of national unity and moral authority, he now faces the perilous task of balancing political neutrality with the moral imperative to respond to a government increasingly viewed as illegitimate. Insiders indicate that King Charles is weighing an unprecedented public address, not to attack the government, but to restore dignity, accountability, and calm in the face of political overreach. The last time a British monarch spoke directly to a crisis of this magnitude was during the abdication of 1936. Should Charles proceed, it would send a historic shockwave across the nation, underscoring the severity of the situation. Meanwhile, Starmer's administration is increasingly isolated, with even Labour MPs reportedly questioning the government's direction behind closed doors. A leaked memo from a senior Labour strategist captures the panic. "We are bleeding working class support by the hour." Reform UK, once dismissed as fringe, is surging, with membership up 300% in a month, local chapters mobilising peaceful resistance, publishing exposés, and legally challenging Labour's decrees. Nigel Farage, once an outsider, is now hailed as a voice of the people, drawing tens of thousands to fiery speeches both online and in person. International attention is mounting as well, with human rights organizations across Europe and North America condemning the UK government's treatment of protesters and restrictions on civil liberties. The United Nations Human Rights Council has reportedly demanded a formal explanation from the UK ambassador over the arbitrary detentions of peaceful citizens, while European media now warn that Britain risks sliding into democratic regression. Some diplomats are quietly raising the prospect of sanctions or trade reconsiderations if Labour's authoritarian trajectory continues. Yet Starmer's response has been silence on accountability, paired with veiled threats of even greater control. At a recent Glasgow press conference, when pressed about voter arrests and the King's reported outrage, he dismissed questions as theatrics, warning that anyone attempting to destabilize our unity from within would face firm action. Calm in tone but unmistakable in intent, his message signaled that resistance will not be tolerated. The crackdown extends beyond political opponents. Journalists reporting critically on the situation are coming under intense pressure. Multiple independent reporters have spoken anonymously about receiving government warnings, while editors claim officials have reminded them of their obligations to national stability under quietly passed media guidelines from last May. Some media outlets, fearing legal or financial retaliation, have already pulled coverage, further shrinking space for dissenting voices. As a result, public trust in the mainstream press has collapsed, driving millions toward independent digital creators, podcasts, and underground publications for uncensored news. Across Britain, tension is palpable, communities teeter between fear and fury, neighbors whisper about being watched, and schools reportedly hold emergency sessions advising students on political neutrality. Churches, once sanctuaries, now double as hubs for legal aid and community organizing, while local councils struggle to balance enforcing Labour directives with preserving public trust. The institutions forming Britain's backbone are beginning to buckle under the weight of top-down political extremism. Yet the people are not yielding. Despite arrests, threats, and a chilling climate, defiance is spreading. "We are not criminals. We are citizens," reads banners at protests from Cornwall to Aberdeen, and petitions demanding repeal of Labour's laws have gathered over 4 million signatures in under a month. Peaceful marches, silent vigils, and massive online campaigns continue to push back, a stark reminder that ultimate power rests with the people. As this confrontation escalates, one question reverberates across the nation: how much longer can Starmer maintain this iron grip before the entire system fractures? This is no longer about policies or party politics, it is a fight for the soul of the nation. This is about the very soul of Britain. As the nation plunges deeper into crisis, the fragile veneer of democratic civility has all but collapsed. What once seemed unimaginable is now playing out in plain sight. The United Kingdom, long a symbol of liberty, fairness, and parliamentary strength, is being observed abroad as a country teetering toward autocracy. Rather than stabilizing a fatigued population, Starmer's grip on power is accelerating a dangerous unraveling of the institutions that uphold British democracy. While Downing Street claims these actions aim to preserve order, the reality on the ground tells a darker story of mass surveillance, censorship, and a growing climate of fear. In recent weeks, Labour's legislative engine has gone into overdrive. In addition to existing public order laws and surveillance measures, Parliament has passed the Digital Harmony Act, a sweeping bill granting the government authority to monitor private communications, remove content deemed subversive, and penalise non-compliant platforms. Its deliberately vague language, terms like destabilising narratives, and digital disorder, leaves enforcement entirely at the discretion of government-appointed regulators. Critics warn the act could effectively silence online dissent, calling it the most intrusive legislation in modern British history. Its effects are already evident. Independent content creators reporting on police brutality, tax protests, or government overreach have seen videos removed, channels demonetized, and in some cases personal bank accounts frozen. Tech companies, facing the threat of massive fines, are preemptively censoring posts and accounts suspected of criticizing the government. WhatsApp groups used by farmers to coordinate peaceful protest routes have reportedly been infiltrated, shut down, or rerouted, while emails flagged with politically sensitive keywords are being delayed or blocked by major service providers. This is no longer paranoia, it is official policy. At the same time, public trust in state institutions is evaporating. The judiciary, once seen as a pillar of independence, is now accused of quietly aligning with Starmer's administration. Recent rulings have upheld mass detentions and police interventions under the guise of national interest, prompting legal scholars and former judges to break ranks and publish open letters warning of lasting damage to Britain's legal framework. The Bar Council issued a rare public rebuke, calling on the government to reconsider its aggressive stance on civil liberties and reaffirming the necessity of judicial independence. Yet Labour shows no sign of retreat. Flanked by an increasingly embattled inner circle, Starmer has launched a full-scale narrative campaign. Press briefings routinely accuse Reform UK protest leaders and sympathetic journalists of undermining national unity, while posters have appeared urging citizens to report anti-government activity, a chilling echo of totalitarian regimes from history. The message is clear: you are either with the government or against the country. Yet resistance is growing. Reform UK has transcended party politics, emerging as a national resistance movement. Its leaders reject violence, committing instead to disciplined legal challenges, peaceful demonstrations, and appeals to international institutions. Nigel Farage and senior figures have repeatedly emphasized non-violent civic action, but Labour's escalating repression has only strengthened their resolve. With every unjust arrest and silenced voice, support swells. First-time voters organize town meetings, disillusioned former Labour supporters switch sides, and some Labour MPs, pressured by constituents, quietly defect or abstain from key votes, risking political exile. Meanwhile, King Charles faces a historic dilemma. His continued silence is increasingly read as complicity, even as aides stress his private concerns. Public sentiment, however, is shifting. Millions have signed petitions urging the monarch to address the nation, exercise his royal prerogative to dissolve Parliament, or at minimum condemn the government with moral clarity. Constitutional scholars are now debating how far the monarchy can act when democratic institutions appear to be collapsing. Never in the modern era has a British monarch faced such a precarious position, where his relevance and authority may hinge on a single address. The pressure is intensifying not only at home but abroad. The European Court of Human Rights has launched an inquiry into the UK's treatment of protesters, while a bipartisan committee in the US Congress has drafted a resolution condemning authoritarian practices and warning of potential suspension of intelligence sharing agreements if civil liberties are not restored. Leaders in Canada, Australia, and Ireland have issued pointed references to troubling developments in their former colonial motherland, and British embassies report protests outside their doors. The world is watching, and Starmer's government has nowhere left to hide. Domestically, cracks are appearing across local and regional governments. The Mayor of Greater Manchester is calling for a full audit of Labour's emergency enforcement funding. In Wales, civil society groups are forming independent alliances to shield communities from what they term federal overreach. Scotland's First Minister has openly defied several new directives, declaring that Scotland will not be governed by fear or repression. Even in London, resistance is bubbling up. from clergy organizing underground gatherings to law firms providing pro bono support for those targeted by the regime, everywhere, a quiet yet growing defiance is taking hold. Britons from all walks of life are reconnecting with a history not only of monarchy and empire but of liberty, protest, and justice, from the Chartists and suffragettes to the resistance of World War II and countless local strikes. This is a nation built on the principle that power must answer to the people, and today that principle is being revived in every village, borough, and brave voice speaking truth in the face of fear. With each passing day, the stakes rise, and so does the resistance. This is today's critical update. Britain stands at a crossroads between silence and defiance, tyranny and freedom, and what comes next will define a generation. At Britain Info, our mission is to cut through the noise, delivering raw, unfiltered, verified facts the mainstream won't touch. We are not here to push propaganda, we are here to expose it. If you value truth, the right to speak, to protest, and to live free, stand with us. Hit like to show your support, share this video so the world sees what's happening, and comment below, we read every message. Subscribe to Britain Info, because in these dark times, independent voices are more vital than ever. Stay strong, stay informed, and above all, stay free.